All right, cool. So I'm gonna dive deep into restrictive endorsements. For those who have watched the other video, right, I actually covered the initial part of this topic where we went over specifically where the history of this process started, right? And we covered what the true definition of money was. We also covered how to turn those bills into redeemable instruments, right? Because ultimately they're a form of security or a bond that we're getting, and we just simply have to know what to do with it in order for it to be redeemed. But if we don't follow the steps that are provided to us and are instructed, then they won't actually take it in, right? So we're gonna skip this part because I went over this in the first videos with you guys. So mainly I'm really getting into the brand new topic of the restrictive endorsement, but you're gonna see exactly how these are aligned. And we're not actually changing anything we were doing from the last video. We're simply adding some steps that are needed based on instructions that I found, right? So I'm going to walk you guys through specifically what the nature of these type of instruments and how they work and what the actual laws are telling us we need to do in order for them to be acceptable. So understanding the nature of monthly statements and payment coupons, right? So recognizing the nature of these statements. Many consumers view their monthly statements and coupons as simple bills, but they're more than that, right? These documents function as a registered security and it ties up to their name, um, and su serve as evidence of financial agreements. Understanding the concepts allows you to recognize your positions and your rights, right, for these financial transactions. So in this particular case, you are the investor. And every consumer transaction, you're the investor. And application serves as a financial instrument to the companies you apply to. So um, if you have any contracts with, companies like T-Mobile or AT&T or Eversource Electricity, those companies produce these financial instruments and you're the investor, right? You're the investor in these instruments. So these statements and coupons as securities, these documents represent a security created and registered in your name, and many of these securities are processed through the central banking system. And we'll talk a little bit about that later. But understanding how these function, right? So a monthly statement is accompanying coupon, right? Serves as evidence of a financial obligation, right? The predecessor note is a coupon represents a predecessor note, meaning it reflects the same debt or obligation recorded in the company's indenture agreement, right? So in the indenture agreement, it basically there's instructions on how this stuff should be handled and who's responsible for doing what, right? And as we get into the call, we'll be talking a little bit about who indenture trustees are because ultimately the indentured trustee is the person that we're going to be dealing with are when we are discussing about power of attorney, right? Because power of attorney is one of the things that we're going to need to do in order to be able to take back control of this process, right? So returning your money statements essentially return your money to you in a form of a registered bond, right? So these are technically bonds, right? And it's so different because a lot of them look at them as bills, a lot of people look at them as bonds. And a lot of you guys are a little bit newer to this language, so I tried to at least keep familiar language, and that's why I encourage everyone to read through a lot of this stuff because you also really do have to understand some of the language around it, right? I've done you guys the due process of simplifying it so that it's comprehensible. But you kind of have to have a little bit of foundation when it comes to this stuff because if you're going to be potentially getting on the phone call and challenging these companies or discussing to them about these instruments, you have to have a little bit of background, right? You need to have a little bit of foundation so you can articulate exactly what you need to get done. right? So however, these companies encourage consumers to return these payments as a gift. So this is what's happening right now. If you guys aren't properly endorsing them and properly stamping them and sending them to the proper location, they redeem them as gifts, right? And it's redeemable for their benefit because what they're doing is they're going to take your payment willingly, right? They're going to take your payment and then they're going to go ahead and redeem the instrument, right? Because it was not redeemed in the first place. So bond ownership. So the issuer, which is the company, retains your information to ensure proper handling of the bond and its coupon payment. All right. So when you're exercising your rights over the instrument, so since you are the registered owner of the financial instrument, you have the authority to determine how they are managed. So to control over your financial instruments, you want to provide explicit instructions. So in order for you to successfully exercise this, guys, you have to be very clear and give written instruction on what they need to do in this particular case, right? I'll be providing you with the letter templates that I have with the instructions that I'm using, right? You also need to transfer ownership. So the transfer of ownership, such as bonds, can only be transferred if the registered owner endorses and signs the back of the certificate. All right. So this is all comes back down to the endorsement piece, right? Because we've taught you guys that in the last video, right? But in this particular case, we're going to be going over an additional step, which is considered a restrictive endorsement. But we went over specifically how to sign the back of each check so that you can properly transfer the ownership to another party. So without the instructions, the companies assume the ownership. So if you went ahead and endorsed your document, but you may not have placed it in the right place or you didn't follow the specific instructions in order for them to know what you need them to do with it, they're going to assume ownership of it, right? They're going to end up redeeming it for their benefit, right? It's all going to be theirs. So really following what they're saying step by step is very important. I'm going to be able to show you guys which laws that are telling us what we need to do and how clear they make it, right? They're very, very specific. All right, so the legal compliance and endorsement regulations. So to redeem your instruments correctly, it is essential to follow the regulations outlined in this particular law. All right, CFR 32.8, 5-8, money and finance, right? Compliance ensures that securities are prepared correctly for redemption or exchange. Endorsement requirements. So to be valid, the endorsement must meet placement legibility, dimensions, and permanent standards. So this is all outlined in this law, guys, right? So I'll be going over the law with you guys shortly, but you have to meet all of these requirements. Like things have to be placed in the right place. It needs to be legible. The dimensions need to meet the standard. And otherwise it's not going to be accepted. All right, so non-compliance consequences. So securities that do not meet or comply with this, right? They're gonna be rendered as invalid, right? They're gonna be rendered as invalid for intended purposes. So the importance of the proper endorsement, right? Endorsement as defined in the UCC commercial laws, right, refers to the signature placed on the instrument purposes such as negotiating, restricting payment, and ensuring liability as the endorser, right? So we went over that stuff here, right? We went over that the endorsements, right? How signatures differentiates from an endorsement, and really just covering all of the history of that, right? Right. So refers to signature placed in the instrument such as negotiating, restrictive payment, incurring liability as an endorser, and if the intent of the signature is unclear, it is generally considered an endorsement unless explicitly otherwise. So you want a proper endorsement because it's crucial, right? So without it, the companies may treat the instrument as blank, right? It's going to end up being blank if it's not done correctly, or it will be considered a gift. So if a lot of people are running into this issue of, well, I sent my check in or my endorsement or my bond, my instrument, right? Like I said, wherever you guys call it, right? In this particular case, it's a security bond, right? It's a bond, it's an instrument. But in the event that you send it and they don't actually respond, right? It's more than likely that it was considered a blank endorsement or a gift, right? Allowing them to claim ownership. So many individuals unknowingly issue blank endorsements, making the instrument payable to whoever it holds, thereby giving companies control over its value, right? And the transition to paperless bill makes it harder to track and recognize these practices. All right, so types of endorsements, right? So the ones we covered prior to this call, we covered the blank endorsement, right? We covered the blank endorsement and we covered the special endorsement. Right now, we're covering restrictive endorsement, but they all go together, right? So if you're missing any of the three, then that's where you don't quite understand how all of this works, right? Because they all work together, but one actually doesn't get redeemed for the simple fact that you are giving the power to whoever's receiving it. You're giving the power to whoever is receiving it, right? Because you're not actually leaving further instructions for them, right? You're allowing them to claim ownership. Then the restrictive endorsement, it limits payment to a very specific person or entity, right? Remember what persons mean. Persons means companies, right? Corporations, right? Preventing further transfer or negotiation. So you're basically, there's no real way for them to get around it. It's specified, and that's why as we continue to go over this, I'm gonna be able to show you specifically what I mean and how you're limiting where it's going. So while this protects your financial interests, it may also restrict the company's ability to profit from your instrument. So these are the laws, guys, right? And I always like to show you where I'm getting this information, right? I didn't write these laws, right? I'm just interpreting and I'm sharing with you based off of what I'm reading here, what I think, right? And this is for you guys to go back and read and reinterpret, right? But I'm going to be going over this tick for tack on what it says and why this is something the government is allowing you to do, right? It's something they've been doing since they got rid of gold, right? They got rid of gold and they basically leveraged credit, right? And they moved into a different form of payment using notes, bonds, and checks. So 328.1 scope of regulations. The regulations in this part are applicable only to the US, right? Bearer securities presented. Certain agencies in the United States and certain government and government sponsored corporations also authorize the restrictive endorsement of bearer security by or through banks for payment at or after their maturity or call date or an exchange of any securities under the exchange offering. By bank or conversion, book entry securities by or through banks at any time of their maturity or call date for redemption at par and application of the entire proceeds in payment of federal taxes provided in securities by the terms or the use of eligible for the issue are eligible for such redemption and by center directors, district directors, Internal Revenue Service for redemption with the proceeds to be applied in payment of taxes other than securities presented under paragraph C of this section. So these regulations do not apply to bearer securities presented for any other transactions or registered securities assigned in blank, right? So you don't actually restrictively endorse your check or your bond or your instrument, then this doesn't pertain to it, right? Or signed as to become in effect payable to bearer. Now, to explain this, I broke it down for you guys a little bit over here, right? What does it really mean? right? Because I want to get right through it and explain to you what it actually means. So, based off of what I actually went over, so this is pretty much how the endorsement looks, right? So you have four endorsements. One goes to restrictive endorsements. One goes to the United States Treasury, right? This is typically for bill remittance stamps. The other is for specifically estate taxes, right? Because the other one was to redeem for payments, and it's a redemption, and you're redeeming your instruments when they come in from the companies. This is for conversion to book entry securities. And then this is for IRS use for tax payments, right? So these are four different stamps, guys, literally. So when I say you guys need stamps for every specific situation, in this case, you will need to get a stamp for the restrictive endorsement that has these exact words in them. Okay. And I'll show you guys in a little bit where to get that stuff, but I'm just trying to help you guys understand what I'm covering so far, right? Because it's a little bit difficult to understand because there's a lot of double language in here, um, in these texts, and you also have to when you're reading these laws, you also have to click on each specific link to understand the definition of each word, right? It's really it's legalese to keep it simple, but I'm just trying, like I said, simplify it for you guys from my perspective. So authorization for restrictive endorsements, right, by banks. So banks are authorized under the conditions and in the form herein herein after provided to place restrictive endorsements, right, upon the face of bearer security owned by themselves or their customers for the purpose of presentation to the Federal Reserve banks or branches or the Bureau of Fiscal Services for payment or redemption at any time within one calendar month, right? So this is going over the very specifics of how banks are authorized to do so, right? This is what they're allowed to do as a bank for exchange during any period for the presentation pursuant to any exchange offering for redemption at par and payment of federal estate taxes at any time prior to maturity or call redemption date for conversion to book entry securities, right? So they're allowed to do pretty much the same thing, guys, right? But banks can only do it for very specific circumstances, right? By service center directors and district directors, Internal Revenue Service, right? Service center directors and district directors, Internal Revenue Service are authorized under the conditions and form herein provided to place restrictive endorsements upon the face of bearer securities for the purpose of presentation to Federal Reserve banks or branches, or to the Bureau of Fiscal Services for redemption and application of proceeds and payment of taxes. Again, it's literally saying the same thing. Like they're allowed to do the same thing, right? And I'm not gonna keep reading it to bore you, but I'm trying to like get right to it to show you guys it's here. Like they're literally telling us what to do, right? Because I'm going to give you the simplified version, right? How I interpreted it, right? So basically, the effective restrictive endorsements, right? So bearer securities bearing restrictive endorsements are herein provided will thereafter be non-negotiable and payment redemption or exchange will be made only as provided in such endorsements. So it can't change. Like they can't, once it's endorsed with a restrictive endorsement, like there's no wiggle room. It's not blank. The companies can't run around it, and that's what they have to accept. Right? As long as it meets the standards they're telling us right here. So as you look at these forms of endorsements, like this is in the law, guys, right? So um these stamps I'm not just coming up with out of thin air. It's right here. They're telling us, for when presented by banks for payment or exchange, the endorsement placed on the bearer security presented for payment or exchange by a bank should be in the following form. Like, so when I was telling you that this is for payment or exchange, right? By bank, payment or exchange. This is the one that we're using in order for us to redeem, right? This is a redemption. This is the redemption one, right? And then this stamp is for book entry securities, right? And then this one is when you're presenting it to the IRS for tax services to make tax payments, right? Every single one of these endorsements have a purpose. And here's where I'm getting it from. Here's where the stamps are coming from, right? And you'll notice here, this one's blank right in this section. It's actually to the bank. It's going to the United States Treasury. That's where it's going. You know, the Federal Reserve Bank of the United States Treasury, right? It's not going to a fiscal agent of the United States. That's someone who I believe can process these payments, but it's not going to them. It's going to United States Treasury. And you'll see I've edited the United States Treasury in the stamp um, as we continue. Right, so it's telling you here the requirements for endorsement, guys. And this is why I'm telling you it's so specific that you have to go through and read through this. And if you really can't understand this stuff, like that's fine, right? You could use ChatGPT, right? I've had to use ChatGPT for a lot of this stuff, um, to simply break it down, right? You could break down sections, and ask it to simplify it for you in different ways, or explain the intentions and how it can be used, etc., so that it's more comprehensible. But this is not everyday language that we're talking here, right? No one says here and after, right? Like we're talking, you know, we're talking language that is not used in the everyday, day-to-day conversation. So in this particular section here, we're covering the fact that these requirements are what we need to follow in order for them to really accept it. So we're looking at the bearer security, right? The endorsement must be imprinted in the left hand portion of the face of the security, right? So it's telling you where it needs to go. On the left hand portion of the face of the security, with the first line thereof parallel to the left edge of the security. So it needs to be on the left hand side, parallel with the left edge of the actual, bill or bond that we're getting, right? And in such manner as be clearly legible in such position that will not obscure the serial number. So you can't block the serial number or anything like that, because that's not gonna actually meet its requirements, right? So you want to be very cautious of that stuff. And then series designation or other identifying data, and cover the smallest possible portion of the text in the face of the security. The dimensions of the endorsement should be approximately 4 inches wide and 1.5 inches in height. Guys, they're telling you how big the stamp needs to be.
So we can't just get any regular stamp. It
Oh,
literally has to be 4 inches.
it said approximately. So it could be 3.5 inches, right? And 1 inches in height. Approximately, right? It doesn't say exactly, it says approximately. So I would try my best to get the exact one. Actually, I provide a link of where to get the exact same one, of that same size. But I'll show you guys later. And it must be imprinted by stamp or plate of such character, right? As will as will render the endorsement substantiality, right? And the name of the Federal Reserve Bank of the district must appear on the plate. So you guys, it's telling you what to put. The name of the Federal Reserve Bank of the district, it must appear on the plate or the stamp used for the imprinting of the endorsement and presentation to the appropriate branch of the Federal Reserve Bank. So, United States Treasury, right? Go ahead, Selena.
Sorry, but what do they mean by plate?
So
It's
the
like this.
plate is basically the stamp, right? So when you look
Okay.
when you look at a stamp, right, it has like a box to it. It's like a box, right, when you stamp something. So it's like a square. And that's what the plate, that's what it means by plate. A good question, right? But so far, like I said, these are the very specific steps that have been missing this entire time that we need to implement in order for this to work. Because they're literally telling us it's not that they're not taking the instrument, and it's not that, you know, they have the wrong intention. Is like if you do it as they're telling you to do it, right, then you're doing everything correctly. Now, you can really enforce it once you've done it the exact way they've instructed us to do it, right? We do it the exact way they've instructed us to do it. And if we have any issues whatsoever, I'll also be providing you with the next steps on how to enforce it. But this is why, some people have been getting remedy and others haven't. It's for the simple fact that there's missing pieces that people do have to consider, right? And this is one of them. So I'll pick up where I was. So we were talking about stamp and plates, right? So I'll start back here. So the name of the Federal Reserve Bank of the district must appear on the plate or the stamp used for imprinting the endorsement. And presentation to the appropriate branch of the Federal Reserve Bank named will be considered as a presentation to the bank. When securities are to be presented to the Bureau of Fiscal Service, in other words, right, United States Treasury, and that's why you replace United States Treasury with this, because it's not going to them, it's going to United States Treasury. So that's where they're telling you to put should be in lieu of the words, right? Federal Reserve Bank of, right? No subsequent endorsement will be recognized. If the form of endorsement in the securities is different than prescribed and in this provision, right? Right? And we're talking about this specific one, right? If it's not as prescribed in this provision, the provisions of 328.7 and 328.8 shall not apply to the security. So you literally have to execute the stamp portion accurately, or the rest won't even matter. On coupons, unmatured coupons attached to restrictively endorsed securities should be canceled by imprinting a prescribed endorsement in such manner that the substantial portion of the endorsement will appear on each coupon. If any such coupons are missing, deduction of their face amount will be made in case of the redemption. And in cases of exchange, remittance equal the face of the amount of the missing coupons must be applied, must accompany the securities. All matured coupons, including coupons which will mature on or before the date of redemption or exchange, except as otherwise specifically provided in an announcement of an exchange offering, should be detached from the securities upon their restrictive endorsement are printed. So basically, it's saying like if you're missing any coupons, like there's deductions that have to happen in that case. Um, and any loss, theft, or destruction of the securities, right, also has to be reported. Right, there's a way to report it. Is here Form PD 2211 um, is application for relief in the event that it gets lost, right? Lost or stolen, um, or it gets destructed in any way, right? And then the shipment of the securities. So the shipment of the securities bearing restrictive endorsements may be shipped at the risk or expense of the shipper by registered mail, messenger, armored service car, or express to the Federal Reserve Bank, right? In which the presenting bank The center director and the district director, Internal Revenue Service, is located or to the appropriate branch of such Federal Reserve Bank. Shipments to the Bureau of Fiscal Services, Washington, D.C., should be made by messenger or armored car. Go ahead, Selena.
Sorry, but I keep on forgetting what I know what endorsement means, but security bearings, I keep forgetting what that is.
So bearer security. So these are like paper check or gift cards where, right, that belongs to whoever holds it. So no name is written on it. The holder can cash it in. Examples would be like a treasury bond or a treasury note or a treasury bill. All right, that's what a bearer security is. It's like a paper check or a gift card.
Right, thank you.
Yep. So, and then definition of the banks. So not just everyday banks, but these include the big banks, guys. So trust companies and savings and loan associations that the government allows to handle these securities. So this is where I'm telling you guys, the banks also include these other companies that are in the contracts that are also considered indentured trustees for the simple fact that they are part of those contracts, right? They're a part of those contracts. And in those contracts, I'll show you how to find out later who they are and where to get their information. So when you guys are pulling up your bill, you know who to send it to and you'll know who to send all your notices to, right? And because you'll know who to send your notices to, right, it'll make it much easier for this stuff to get done. And I'll be able to walk you through that step by step at the end of this call. But for right now, I'm covering pretty much like the boring stuff so I can show you exactly what the end results are and how this stuff should work, right? So this step two, but it's very important, guys. So I want you guys to always remember you got to read this information, right? I'm the messenger. I'm showing you that this stuff is it's legit. Like you can do it. It works, but you have to follow the instructions. They're telling you if you mess this up, it won't be accepted. It doesn't get any easier than that. I see it as an open book test. They're telling you exactly what to do. You just have to execute. So what are the rules for this, right? So the rules that only apply for if a bank or the IRS, right, Internal Revenue Service is handling these securities. So cash out after they have reached their due date. So like cashing a check after it expires, right? Do you guys understand what that means? Like cash out after their due date?
Like if you have a check and it expires, you can still cash it out through the process.
Yeah. So basically, when you guys get your statements or your instruments, right? Like I said, for some people it's new to them, so like they call them bills, right? It's like they're bills. So when you guys get those in the mail, right? They have a date on it, correct?
Yeah,
And usually that date tells you when it was due, correct?
I get it.
You
Okay.
get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's what it's talking about, right? Also exchanging old securities for new ones. It's like swapping an old phone for a new one, right? Paying off estate taxes when someone dies using these securities. So literally you can if you're the beneficiary, right? If you're the beneficiary of an estate, if somebody dies and you're the beneficiary, you can pay off all of their dues using this stuff, guys. This is all part of their rules, right? Converting them into digital um book entry security. So this is like turning them into DVD, right? Turning a DVD into a digital file. And that's what this is, guys. That's what this particular section is. You guys weren't conversion to book entry securities, right? Which I'm not very familiar with, to be honest with you. I just try to find the simplest way to explain this to you, right? I'm not familiar with, conversion to book entry securities. A little more familiar with, IRS tax payments, estate payments, and the redemption method, right? But that's just again to educate you guys on what the rules are, right? So how does the process actually work? So for the banks, if a bank wants to help you cash out or use these securities, they have to stamp, right? They have to stamp the security with a special wording on the left side, which makes it non-tradable, right? This stamp shows that it's official and is being sent to the government for processing. And this stamp must be clear and not cover important info on the serial number, right? Like the serial number. And then you want to send the security to the Federal Reserve Bank in their district, kind of like mailing the package to a very specific government office. Now, do you guys understand what that means? Like, you remember when we went over it in the very first call? Um,
I remember.
I remember explaining it to Selena, right? So you you have to read the letter that they send you, the bill, the bond, the instrument, right? When you receive that, sometimes it's either on the front or on the back. It says for remittance payment, send to. That's the bank they're talking about, guys. They're telling you where to send it, right? They're telling you where to send it, right? So you have to pay attention to what it's saying. Now, um, for the IRS, right? The IRS can also stamp these securities when using them to pay taxes, right? Like income or gift taxes, right? Their stamps will also be sent to pay a
Already?
specific tax bill. Okay.
Yeah, but
Hold on. All right. So basically, when you're stamping, right, what happens after you stamp, right? Once the security is stamped, it can't be traded or sold to someone. It will only be cashed out, redeemed, or exchanged based on what the stamp says. Right? The bearer securities is anyone holding them can cash them in. Right? So when we were endorsing the checks, it says pay to the order of, right? Selena, you remember what it said?
Pay to the order of barrier, if I'm mistaken, or
Right? You pay to the order. Yep, you pay to the order of the bearer. So you're basically
yes.
whoever is the bearer at that time can redeem it. So when we endorsed it, we made it payable to the bearer.
Yeah, yeah, payable to the bearer.
Yeah. But in this particular case, we're talking about a restrictive endorsement where it's not being paid to bearer, it's being paid specifically to who? Redeemable to the United States Treasury, right? And that's what the stamp is going to be doing, right? So you'll pay to the order of a specific bank, but it's redeemed at the United States Treasury. But because we don't specifically instruct them to redeem at United States Treasury, guess what they do? It's open book for them, right? Because it's not a restrictive endorsement, and two, it's a blank endorsement at that point because we missed a step. So I have posted a link here, guys, where you can just simply click on it. This is the exact same stamp. Like you can just go right here. I believe it's like 35 bucks, and also if you pay, you get it. Like I spent like I think 47 bucks. It was like another 12 bucks to get the stamp. But you'll get the blue ink, right? The blue ink pad is like 12 bucks. So you'll pay set 47 bucks for this, the total purchase of this. But you want to get the exact stamp that matches this. Where is it? Matches this right here, right? For redemption or exchange of securities of a new issue in accordance to the written instructions. So there's different versions when you scroll through these, right? You're gonna pick the one that matches this first option, guys. Right? This is the ticket. This is what like a lot of people have been missing, guys. And it's because you got to remember the UCC instructions and the UCC laws are in a completely different section of where they explain this stuff, right? This is an entirely different set of laws. This is, this is CFR, guys. Like this all has to do with how to restrictively endorse. They're 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 very similar, but they're different. Go ahead, but they work together.
So basically, you got to get the bill of remittance stamp, if I'm pronouncing it right.
Yeah, you got to use this one. I put this here specifically so you got to know which one you're using.
And to back up a little bit, what you were saying, then you say like, do like just make sure I put payable to barrier, but deemed to the United States of Treasury.
Yeah,
Then you say that.
it'll be two endorsements.
Oh, okay.
Remember, you're doing the same thing you did before, you're just adding another stamp.
Okay. Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah. So basically, do what I was doing, but I'm
Yeah.
just
So, like, I'll show you an example, right? Like this is an example here of one that was sent and it was paid, right? If you take a look at this, right, it's the same thing we did, paid to the order of, right?
yeah, American Express.
Right? Without recourse, right? Agent, right? By accommodation, principal, agent, etc. Right? And then the account numbers on the bottom, right? You want to add the account number that is associated with what you got. And then remember, it's telling you where to send it to. This is where it's going, guys. But you also have to read what it says in the back. You read what it says in the back, they're telling you where to send it, right? It's not actually telling us where it needs to be sent here. But when you read the back and it tell you for remittance payments, please send to this, right? Because when you receive your bill, guys, there's usually an address from where it came from, right? Sometimes it's on the top left, right? It's different for all the companies, but you have to look at the actual statement to know exactly where it's coming from, right? So, but to show you that the stamp in this particular example, it doesn't look like it was placed where they wanted them to place it, right? But this was actually taken. This was taken in because it was restrictive. But when I show you the example, there's another example I'm going to show you of a proper endorsement of where it says to stamp it, right? Because remember, we're doing this to follow the exact instructions they're giving. And I've seen cases where like I've had an AT&T bill go through and it worked just fine. And then the second time I sent it in, like it didn't work. It's weird, right? But that's because I realized like I didn't do everything the right way. So, they kind of decided what they wanted to do at that point. And so I started looking more into it and I'm like, okay, well, what could have gone wrong? And surely but not, I was missing a stamp to restrict it. So who knew what happened to my second one? So these stamps are very important and you want to use this very first one, guys. Like this is the one that you're going to be using for all your coupons to redeem them, right? And you're going to order it from here. Order from here, then you'll have it. Uh, it took about 10 days to arrive when I ordered it. I got it in like 10 days. But um, once you receive this is when you can really start pushing the needle with things because I already taught you guys the initial steps of how to get this done. Now we need to restrict it so that it actually goes to the treasury and it's not an open book for them. Right. And now we just cover how to send it, right? It's basically
So we
so
would just
right? Because I know it mentions things like armored service truck, like that's just what it says. That's what they're saying. So I'm clearing it up, but we want to send this specifically via registered mail, right? You want to send it certified green return receipt, right? Certified green return receipt, so that you can track it and they have to send you back the green return receipt once they received it. Okay. Now, this was covering pretty much like the whole maturity thing, like what happens with the coupons. So clearly, when we're dealing with coupons, it has some examples of how this works. But basically, if the coupon hasn't matured, leave it attached. but stamp it. So basically, what it means by matured is it hasn't expired, guys. Like it's not past its due date. Remember what I was telling you guys about the due date?
Yeah.
Yep. So that's what it means by it hasn't matured yet. So you do not attach. You leave it attached if it's not past that date. Leave it attached, and then you stamp the top. That's what it's saying, right? It says part of the stamp must touch both the security and the coupon. So, in order for this to be that clear, right, it has to be touching both. And I'm gonna pull up an example in just a sec. Give me a sec, guys. I'm gonna
It's so funny how it keeps saying coupon.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Let me show you guys an example. Because it is, right? But like that's why like it can get a little bit confusing, guys, is because everyone knows of this stuff in their own way, in their own language, right? The proper language is, security bond. That's what it is,
Yeah.
bond. But not everyone every day is talking about it and like, hey, do you pay your security bonds? Like no one's saying that. Um, it comes in the form of what they call a bill, right? But the true meaning of it is a security bond, right? It's a remittance coupon. But here is one done correctly, guys. Do you see this? Do you see the Can you guys see
Yep.
the
Sorry.
screen?
Yep. Yep.
Awesome. So this is the stamp, the exact stamp that we were missing,
Okay.
right? We were paid to the order of the company that it wants us to send it to, or remittance, right? Because it needs to go to the remittance address, right? And this, as you can see here, guys, that this specific stamp, that someone used a stamp, right? You can write it out. You can write it out because you're still endorsing it. Remember, an endorsement can be written or you could stamp it. But what they really want you to restrictively endorse is this portion, guys. This is what you really need a stamp for.
So I can get both of those stamps on the same website that you showed us.
Yeah, you can get both of them. This one is a little bit small. I don't know the dimensions. But you don't need to get this second stamp, guys. You need this one. This is the one they tell you need
Okay.
right here, right? They tell you need this specific stamp. But what they're telling you is when I read this, right, it's saying part of the stamp must touch both the security and the coupon. Remember, you've got the security, right? The big top portion of it, and then the coupon is on the bottom. And it's telling you I
You gotta
blocked.
get this in the middle of it.
Yeah. You got to get it. You got to get it to the point where part of the stamp must touch both the security and the coupon. This ensures the security and the coupon are treated as one unit. Guys, it's very specific. And this is what I'm trying to explain. They're telling you how to do it. You have to follow what they're telling you, right? Because they're not going to turn around and tell you what you did wrong. They already told you that. You'll never know what you did wrong. That's why understanding this is important because you guys can start taking care of this stuff like ASAP, but you have to follow the instructions they're given. That's the only thing, right? Why is this important? It prevents anyone from detaching and redeeming your coupon separately. So if you don't get this restrictive endorsement, right? You don't get part of it on the coupon and part of it on the security, someone can tear it and redeem it because it hasn't been restricted. Is that making sense?
Yeah, like someone can take it.
Correct. So if the peripheral line was right here, then they can technically they can just rip this off and it's no longer restrictive. So you want to have this stamp, right? I would specifically like to draw an example line. specifically, if it was me, right? And this is God, I'm just giving you guys my perspective on this. If it was me and this was the perforated line right here, right? Let me change the colors, it was easier. That was a perforated line. I would take this stamp, right? And I would have the stamp like this.
Right.
You understand?
Yes.
Right? Because they said specifically don't cover any serial numbers and don't cover any other important information. So like this is important information, that's important, right? You don't want to be covering up anything that is that they're going to actually need to review. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So if we pretend like that was a perforated line, like I would put the stamp where it says here as instructed, part of the stamp must touch both the security and the coupon. Must ensure that security and the coupon are treated as one unit. So if the coupon is missing, right? The missing coupons are a big deal, guys, right? Because they represent a loss of money. And when you present the security, the value of any missing coupon will be deducted from the total amount that you're supposed to receive. So
Oh,
you're basically gonna lose the money, guys. Like it won't cover the payment of what you're trying to exchange or redeem if any of it's missing. So if it's missing, right? I told you guys before that you just need to simply file this form, right? Where is it? Did I miss it? Where is the form? All right, right here. Yep. So you want to get this form right here, form PD 2211.
So that's the relief form.
That's the form. Yeah, if you receive one and it's missing anything, right, or it gets lost, then that's a form you fill out. That is instructed, right? And that's what it says. Now, if the coupon's already matured, so you detach all matured coupons before you stamp and send the security. These coupons are no longer valid for future interest payments and do not need to be part of the security process. Double check dates to avoid leaving any matured coupons unattached. So the coupons are a crucial part of the bearer security as they represent money you can claim at a certain time. Handling them properly ensures that you don't lose value or have deductions when presenting the security. So in other words, if you want all the entire value of the coupon to be redeemed, then you have to make sure everything is attached properly and it's being sent accordingly, right? Stamping across coupons also helps keep everything secure and prevents fraud. So that's why the instructions are very clear, guys, right? Like I said, in this particular case, the way this stamp was up here, right? As you can see, it was still accepted, right? It was still accepted because I believe that one, it has a restrictive endorsement on it, but they missed the important step of placing it right near the periphery line, so they can't change it, right? They can't alter it, right? But like this is the result of what had happened, right? So if you pay attention to the amount here of the charges, 63, it was 6,035, right? And the payment was accepted. Right? It was minus 6,037 with the balance of positive 50, right? Go ahead.
Um, okay, like I understand everything you're saying, but so when a coupon is matured, you detach it. Can you give me like a picture of what they mean by detached? Like, do they mean like cutting off the top part?
Yes. So what I mean is,
Okay.
you know where the perforated line is?
Yes.
That's where you detach it.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. Okay.
Yep. That's where you detach it. But when you run into that, you want to make sure that you are following the instructions it's telling you, right? To stamp the coupons.
Right.
So they can't, right? They're telling you to secure it so it prevents fraud because what's going to end up happening, guys? These companies are going to do what they want to do with it, and it won't be redeemed, right? Does that all make sense so far? Does anyone else have questions? I know it was a lot of information, but that's the missing piece, guys. Like if you guys have gone through the other material, right, that I included here, then you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, right? You'll know exactly what I'm talking about, and you'll have all the other steps done. Now it's time for you to order your stamp. It's time for you to order your stamp. Okay. So rather than you having the guys to fish through all of this information just to figure out what steps you need to take, you want to use this information for clarity, right? You want to use this information to study and understand this process, right? I'd be happy to answer questions as you guys go, but the most important step here is going to be this here, guys, right? So we're going to dive into the actual steps that you guys need to take because I'm sure this is what you guys have been waiting for. You guys are probably like, all right, so now that you're telling me all this, what do I need to do now? Well, here it is. It's a step-by-step remittance process, right? So the first step you guys need to do is we have to revoke the power of attorney. You guys are probably wondering what that means is the power of attorney is basically the control they have over you on whether or not they're going to alter your documents on your behalf or they're going to make any decisions on your behalf because you haven't claimed power of attorney. So you want to revoke it and take back ownership of your power of attorney. Some of you are probably wondering, well, how do I do that? Well, it's a great question. I'm gonna be adding letters underneath this section here, and all the letters you guys are gonna need, right? So you guys will be able to use the copy and paste letters just like you do in the credit campus, to fill in the blanks and mail those off to the right place, right? The second step that you guys are gonna need to do is identify the trustee and indenture trustee. See, indenture trustee is the one that you guys are actually going to be sending the power of attorney to because they're the ones who are the power of attorney, right? And I'm going to show you guys how to find that. So you can go through and search, with the company name. You can copy paste this, all right, just like this. So let's say T-Mobile. Boom. All right. Now we're going to go to T-Mobile. Now we see that T-Mobile USA Inc. and T-Mobile US Inc. and each of the subsidiary grantors from time to time party here too, indenture trustee. Now, the actual trustee is 𝐬𝐮𝐽𝐵 Trust Company, Americas. So if you have a T-Mobile bill, this is who you're sending notice to. I would send notice to both. I would send the power of attorney to T-Mobile Inc. and I would send it to the 𝐬𝐮𝐵 Trustee Company in Americas. But this is how you find. So like if you guys have let's say for example someone has a somebody give me something. Think of
Um,
a company you guys work with. Like give me something. I'll put
um,
it to show you real time.
AT&T,
All right.
Verizon.
Let's do Verizon, right? Not a lot of people have Verizon. All right, so the trustee agreement. Nope, it's not the one. Bingo, right? So indenture between Verizon Master Trust as trust and the U.S. Bank Trust Company and National Association as indenture trustee. So you're gonna be sending it to both. And I'm only saying sending it to both because there's not gonna be any room for wiggle room. But the true person who's actually gonna be doing the power of attorney stuff over you on your behalf is gonna be the trustee. But this is how you find who to send it to, like the right companies, right? So if you guys have things like student loans, right? You want to find someone like Nelnet. right? Now you have the information, right? So Nelnet Private Student Loan Financing Corporation, right? Union Bank and Trust Company and National uh, Education Loan Network Incorporated and U.S. Bank Trust National Association, right? And
That's so easy.
it's telling you exactly who's who. So the trustee is when you look at this trust agreement is the depositor is Nelnet, the trustee is U.S. Bank and Trust Company. So this is who you're sending it to. You're sending it to them, and you're sending it to them, right? So that's how you find out who you need to send these documents to. You're going to be sending that power of attorney to, because again, guys, if you don't take away their power, they're just going to continue to abuse it. And once you send this in, and they don't follow course, then it's easier for you to hold them accountable, right? So you want to order the restrictive endorsement stamp, right? Here's the link, right? You guys can just click that and it'll tell you. You guys also want to order some stamps. You want to order 1 cent, 2 cent, 5 cents, or $5 and $10 stamps, right? Large contracts require at least $15 in stamps, right? Worth of 100,000. Because you need the stamps in order to place them on, as you can see here. This is a $5 stamp, so they placed $10 on this one specifically. Right? They placed $10 worth of stamps on this one. But you need to place stamps on these because the post office won't cover this, right? It's a tax thing. Right? You're basically paying taxes. Your payments are a tax, right? Everything's a tax, guys. All payments are taxes. So when people are talking about taxes, everything's a tax. Go ahead.
What do you mean by like I know what you mean by the stamps, but like when you say like use $1, two, I mean
Yeah, if you
cent.
want to order 1 cent, 2 cent, because not all your bills are going to be large. You're paying based off of the amount and the value on it,
Oh, okay. All right.
right? So
All right.
the higher the value, the higher value stamp you have to put on it,
Okay.
right? So if I need, $15 to cover 100K, right? You need at least $15 in stamps, right? I'm not going to be putting a $10 stamp on 500 bucks. Like that's crazy.
I get it. So
I'm gonna put
so
a
it's
5 cent stamp, right? I'm gonna put a 10 cent stamp.
right. So it's about the amount that's on there.
Correct. All right, exactly. Now it's probably a way for you guys to find it, right? If you search it up, stamp tax cow. No, that's not it. Mm-mm. You know what? I'm gonna figure it out. I won't do it here. I want to get straight to it. And then I'm gonna add it to this so that it's easier for you. Figure out how you can calculate this, right? So
Thank
maybe
you.
it's easier for you, but as far as I know, like, you can be working with the 5, 10 cent stamps. In the meantime, because remember the value of 100K would require at least $15. So you're not looking to buy $5, $10 stamps right off the gates unless your bills are fairly large, right? Unless
Right.
your securities and your bonds are fairly large. Right? So you want to stamp and sign the promissory note, right? The upper left-hand corner, right? Apply the restrictive endorsement stamp, right? So this is the law that you're going to follow, right? For some guidance. This is where you're going to actually go back to where I just was to review that you're doing it correctly, right? So you want to sign the coupon at the bottom of the bill statement, just like I taught you guys in the very beginning, right? How to endorse the check. Right, you sign the bottom. Right, I gave you guys a ton of examples. So you see here it says buy accommodation without recourse. Right, you write out the total amount. These are just all uh right. In this case, acceptable for a deposit payable to, and in this case, you want to do it to Barclays, right? because you're sending it specifically to that bank. You want to send it to that bank. But remember, read the actual bill because it's telling you where it needs to go. I can't emphasize that enough. The next thing you want to do, guys, is once you sign the coupon, right, you're going to sign the back like a check, right? This is the example you want to put, and I'll show you how that should look, right? Pay to the order of. So on the back of the check, it should look like this, guys. You see what I'm saying? I might have to flip that for you guys to see it a little bit better. Can you guys see it?
Yep.
Right? So that's what I mean when it says that. So we're at this point right now where we're going to sign the back like a check, right? You're going to look just like this. Except for deposit by your name, right? And remember, you're doing it for the all caps name because it's the principal, right? You want to make it payable to the order of the company. So it'll be payable to the company and then the amount of the bill or contract, right? Now this is what you're putting in the very front, right? This is exactly what you put in the front, but in the back, you want to be endorsing it just like this. Right? And as you go through and sign it, right? When you're signing it in the front, you're looking specifically at the way you sign the beneficiary signature, right? You're going to do lowercase letters because remember, the beneficiary, right, is the agent and it's lowercase. But then you have all caps because the bill, when it comes, or the coupon, when it comes, it has the all caps name. And you're not actually paying as the all caps name. You're paying on behalf of the all caps name as the lower caps name. So that's what it means here that you want to use lowercase letters. And then you want to include in the memo, right, the account number. And you guys are probably wondering, well, what do you mean by memo? Right? When you look at a check, right, where's the memo ever go? Right? So check memo right here. So in the memo, so basically, right on the bottom left of the instrument that you guys are using, you want to put the actual account number. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So if you're looking at it as if it's a bill, right? If you're looking at it just like this, right, it would go right down here as the memo, the account number. So you'd put account number and then the account number because that's the memo. So account number on the bottom as if you were writing a check. All right. And then same thing here, guys. When everything is being signed, you want to be acting as the agent, right? You're signing on behalf of whoever received the bill, so the all caps name, right? The all caps name is who you're doing it for. Then you want to apply the postage stamps, right? On the lower right corner, right? You could do a 10-cent stamp or two 5-cent stamps. And then on the back, it's lower right corner, 10-cent or five or two 5-cent stamps. Now again, remember for larger contracts, guys, like you have to be mindful of how much you would need at least need, right? And in this case, like if you're someone who's like trying to pay off a student loan for that amount, right? Then that's the type of stamps you're going to be looking at. But in the meantime, you want to order 1 cent, 2 cent, or 5 cent or 10-cent stamps so that you can have them You can order maybe 3 or 4 books, one of each, like one book of each, and use those um, as your stamps. And these are the additional documents I'm going to be sharing with you guys, right? You're going to need to attach the redemption of interest instrument letter, right? And I'm going to walk you through that at a later call, guys, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to also do a second video or third video of this, but this time I'm going to be walking you guys step by step virtually on how to endorse it, right? And I'll do like I did last time in the video, but this time I'll be including the stamp and I'll be including the way it should be done according to the instructions I've been reading you guys, right? It's not the way I've been doing it, it's the way it's instructing me to do it. So I'm trying to follow what it's saying, right? I'm following what it says, and that's the method that I want you guys to be able to see because it'll help simplify it, right? Because today we really went over a lot of the material, and the next steps are going to be me sharing a video with you guys on how to actually do it, right? How to execute it. Second, you want to send all these 3 letters in, right? So you want to revoke power of attorney. You want to um, attach the redemption of the instrument letter, and then all accounts are prepaid. So basically, this is us notifying them via letter that, hey guys, like this stuff is what these laws are telling us to do. The power of attorney is to get rid of their ability to control the account. And then this redemption of instrument letter is basically, it's like a cover letter, right? We're introducing the fact that you are attempting to do this. And in order for it to be properly executed, you're telling them what they need to do based on the laws that you're following, right? So that's what the redemption of instrument letter is. And you're going to need to be able to send all 3 of those via registered mail with the actual bill. And then you need to do this for each company, guys. You need a letter for each company. It's going to be quite a bit of paperwork, but this is how we're going to get out of the cycle of using the hard earned income that you guys are making to take care of these bills that they're double dipping in, right? Because technically they're double dipping for the simple fact that you should be redeeming this stuff, but we weren't ever taught the right way to do it, and no one ever showed us where to get this information. So I'm sharing with you guys where I got this information and the most up to date info that I have, right? So you want to send it registered mail to industrial trustee or the CFO of the company, right? And what I mean is when I was telling you guys to send it to the actual company and the trustee, right? You want to send it to the company and the trustee is because I'm rather playing it safe than sorry. Like they can't say that they never received anything. Um, and both parties are going to be notified. I'll add that here so that you guys can have that, but that's just my perspective. You don't have to, like it's optional. You can just send it right to the indentured trustee. And I showed you guys how to find that, but you want to make sure you send that info over to them so that they can receive notice because they're the ones handling all the finances, guys. They're handling all this stuff. The trustees managing it. And then you also want to order some yellow envelopes because you don't want to be putting this in the white envelopes, guys, like the small white envelopes. You don't want to fold any of this stuff. You want to keep everything intact. So I would make sure you order some yellow envelopes, right? 8x11 envelopes. I'm sure it's right, 8x11, maybe a little bit bigger, but the larger size envelopes. Does that all make sense?
Yeah, so it definitely did all come together because now I totally get why it wasn't working for me. Like when it came to the yellow envelopes to like the stamps and where I was putting
Yeah.
it.
So we were endorsing things right. Like we knew how to fill out the actual document, but the problem was we were missing the restrictions. We were missing the piece that they're actually telling us like if you don't actually include this, then we're just not going to do anything with it and we're going to keep it. So my objective today was to actually walk you guys through all the laws, so you guys can see for yourself that This isn't stuff that I just watched in the video or whatever. Like I'm reading to you guys tick for tack what it says here. Like I read through majority of this stuff with you guys. And I showed you what it says, what the stamp should say, tells you where it needs to go, right? How to handle it if it's lost, right? How to send it, right? Where to send it to. And then I've simplified what all this stuff means, guys, right? So I encourage you guys to go back, read it. If there's anything you guys are stuck with, right? Anything you guys are stuck with, this is why you guys have the general chat. I need you guys to start posting whatever questions you have in regards to anything that you don't quite understand, because I'm really quick to answer you guys. So just make sure you take advantage of that. Before we end the call, I know I went into a lot of detail with that stuff. I wanted to see if you guys had any questions. Like, was any part of that confusing? Did I know Selena, you mentioned, it helped answer some of your questions, but was there anything that anyone else had questions about? No questions?
Oh, I'm good.
Awesome. But did all that make sense?
Yeah, so far, because I can always go back and read over it again, which I'm going to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. And two, like I said, this call is recorded. I'm going to, once I download it, I'll upload it into the campus. And so you guys can go back, rewatch, re-listen. And then on the next call, we're going to be going over the step by step on how to execute this. So I'm going to actually go over this with you guys on video on how I would be doing it. So you guys can in real time see how I do it.